Hi guys, welcome to Little Wicket Railway. I'm Rob, and a couple of weeks ago I reviewed the new Hornby Black 5.
Came so close, and we know you tried. I like my model, but it ain't the ultimate Black 5.
Go check out that video, I'll put a link up here and in the video description. Thank you to everyone who watched that video, but I did have a few comments that I thought it was worth responding to with another video. If you remember, I had a couple of issues with the model. Firstly, it stalled when going through a pair of points. And secondly, it slowed down dramatically when going through curves.
I think it's slowing down noticeably on the curves as well.
I did manage to resolve both those problems by cleaning the tender connection contacts and installing a decoder. However, it was pointed out in the comments that because I changed two things at the same time, it wasn't possible to identify which action had solved which problem. Clearly a few scientific minds in the audience there, and I agree it would have been better to have only changed one thing at a time and seen what the result was individually. Well, I can't really unclean the contacts, but I was able to remove the decoder and reinstall the blanking plate so you can see what the impact of only cleaning the contacts was. Reinstalling the blanking plate was again a bit of a faff. You've got to remove the two screws in the tender and gently lift the tender body off, being careful not to disturb the rear lamp wiring. Hornby really should have made this a million times easier with a magnetic lift-off access cover under the coal load. But I did eventually get the blanking plate back in, and as you can see running on analog, the loco goes through the points that it was previously struggling with without any problems. So it appears that cleaning the tender contacts resolved that issue. Listen to how loud the motor is though. I didn't notice this the first time around, and I definitely didn't notice the motor noise when it was running on DCC, but maybe that's because the sounds were on. However, as it comes round and enters the curves, it's still slowing down dramatically. So I think we can say that it's the digital decoder with the motor feedback functionality that's resolved the slowing down. If you've got an analog feedback controller, then you might also not experience the slowing down, but using my very basic analog controller, it's extremely noticeable. And again here, we're just going through those points very slowly to demonstrate that the tender connection issue was resolved through the cleaning. And it's actually a lovely crawl, but it is really noisy. Hopefully that answers the questions. Cleaning the contacts stops the stalling, and adding the decoder resolved the slowing down through the curves. I had a few other comments asking why I'd bothered to compare it to the Railroad Black 5, which is based on a 70s tooling, when there's a super detailed version available that would have made for a much better comparison. Well, let it never be said that I'm not dedicated to keeping my viewers happy. This is the super detailed main range version from 2016, reference R3616, although I think it's based on a tooling from the early 2000s, but now we can do a proper comparison and play a game of spot the difference. And I'm aware that Sam's Trains has just released a video purely dedicated to this subject, comparing the different generations of Black 5s, but I've already shot most of this video and made a silly song before his video came out, so I'm going to give you my thoughts anyway. In terms of general appearance, they've both got a good level of detail, although the new version does have some extra bits, plus more of the detail appears to have been highlighted, such as some of the copper coloured pipework and the ends of the cylinders. The whistles on the new version look a bit finer. Both models have sliding cab roof vents, both models have sprung buffers, both models have the fine railings running along the side of the boiler. The models have moulded rivet detail, but this is a bit finer on the newer version. Talking about moulding, the older version does have a noticeable mould line down the centre of the boiler. The new model obviously has the illuminated lamps on the front and rear, whereas the old model just has the lamp irons. The valve gear around the cylinder area looks more detailed on the new model, and the wheel centres have been painted up to look metallic, and they really do stand out, but I'm not sure how realistic this is. The tenders are clearly of different designs, seeing as the older tender has a riveted body, whereas the new tender is smooth, but there does appear to be slightly more detail on the tender underframe on the new version. Both coal loads are removable, and the coal load in the newer model is fuller, and I also think it looks a bit more realistic. The quality of the painting and printing on both models looks fairly similar. The tender area facing the cab on the older model doesn't have as much detail, and the cab itself is probably the area where the models are most noticeably different. The new model has quite a bit of detail, plus the open firebox with the lighting effect, whereas the older cab, while still painted up, is nowhere near as nice, especially the glazing, which is a larger unit in the older model and also seems to form the cab seating. The connection between the loco and tender is also different. The new version has the plug-in PCB design and leaves a 7mm gap, whereas the older version has the metal drawbar with the visible wires, which in my opinion are quite ugly, and leaves a gap of 8mm. So the new version is neater and 1mm closer. However, the older style does allow you to change the drawbar, so you can get the tender significantly closer if you wanted to. Both models have 5-pole motors, and I don't think either has a flywheel. The old model weighed in at 336 grams and the new model at 361 grams, so not much difference there. But there is a big difference in price. The old model, which was old new stock from a retailer, cost me £135, but you can get these secondhand for quite a bit cheaper. Whereas the new model cost £206 from the retailers, so that's over £70 difference. I gave the older model a good run in on analog. It didn't stall once, it seemed to be quieter, and it doesn't slow down nearly as much through the curves as the newer model does. This suggests to me that either the motor or the mechanism in the older model are better quality, and in my opinion it definitely runs better than the newer model. Then I installed the 8-pin version of the HM7000 in the older version, and it's actually marginally easier to install a decoder in this model because there's only one screw to worry about and less wiring to get in the way, although there is slightly less room to fit the decoder and the speaker in. And then I reinstalled the 21-pin HM7000 decoder in the new model so that I could run them side by side.
Got myself 2 black 5s, it's a Hornby head-to-head, taking pictures side by side, we'll put this argument to bed. There's really not much in it, they're pretty much the same. One's got some pretty lights, but changing them's a pain. Black 5s from Hornby, which is the best? Comparing old with the new, we'll put them to the test. Big difference in the price, new one costs quite a lot, but I think I'll save my money and give the older one a shot.
So there we go. Personally, having played with them both for a bit, I'd be more than happy with the older version. I don't think the extra features such as the flickering firebox, the illuminated lamps and extra cab detail on the new model justify spending an extra £70 to £100. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Special thanks to all the YouTube members and patrons for your support, it's very much appreciated. Thanks for watching and I'll hopefully see you again soon.
Black 5s from Hornby, which is the best? Comparing old with the new, we'll put them to the test. Big difference in the price, new one costs quite a lot, but I